and thus would become better acquainted with the countryside than folk who dwell in cities. And thus become, he would find that his services were always in demand. Only of late did the Governor General say to me, could he be but furnished with the name of a secretary who should know his work not only by the book, but also by experience, he would give him a great sum, since nothing is to be learned by the former means, and through it much confusion arises. You confound me, you overwhelm me, said Khlobuev, staring at his companion in open-eyed astonishment. I can scarcely believe that your words are true, seeing that for such a trust an active, indefatigable man would be necessary. Moreover, how could I leave my wife and children unprovided for? Have no fear, said Murazov. I myself will take them under my care, as well as procure for the children a tutor. Far better and nobler were it for you to be travelling with a wallet and asking alms on behalf of God, than to be remaining here and asking alms for yourself alone. Likewise, I will furnish you with a tilt waggon, so that you may be saved some of the hardships of the journey, and thus be preserved in good health. Also, I will give you some money for the journey, in order that, as you pass on your way, you may give to those who stand in greater need than their fellows. Thus, if, before giving, you assure yourself that the recipient of the alms is worthy of the same, you will do much good. And as you travel, you will become acquainted with all men and sundry, and they will treat you not as a tchinovnik to be feared, but as one to whom, as a petitioner on behalf of the Church, they may unloose their tongues without peril. I feel that the scheme is a splendid one, and would gladly bear my part in it were it not likely to exceed my strength. What is there that does not exceed your strength? Said Murazov. Nothing is wholly proportionate to it. Everything surpasses it. Help from above is necessary, otherwise we are all powerless. Strength comes of prayer, and of prayer alone. When a man crosses himself and cries, Lord, have mercy upon me, he soon stems the current and wins to the shore. Nor need you take any prolonged thought concerning this matter. All that you need do is to accept it as a commission sent of God. The tilt waggon can be prepared for you immediately, and then, as soon as you have been to the archimandrite for your book of accounts and his blessing, you will be free to start on your journey. I submit myself to you, and accept the commission as a divine trust. And even as Khlobuev spoke, he felt renewed vigour and confidence arise in his soul, and his mind began to awake to a sense of hopefulness of eventually being able to put to flight his troubles. And even as it was, the world seemed to be growing dim to his eyes. Meanwhile, plea after plea had been presented to the legal authorities, and daily were relatives whom no one had before heard of putting in an appearance. Yes, like vultures to a corpse did these good folk come flocking to the immense property which Madame Khanasarov had left behind her. Everywhere were heard rumours against Chichikov, rumours with regard to the validity of the second will, rumours with regard to will number 1, and rumours of larceny and concealment of funds. Also there came to hand information with regard to both Chichikov's purchase of dead souls, and to his conniving at contraband goods during his service in the customs department. In short, every possible item of evidence was exhumed, and the whole of his previous history investigated. How the authorities had come to suspect and to ascertain all this, God only knows, but the fact remains that there had fallen into the hands of those authorities information concerning matters of which Chichikov had believed only himself and the four walls to be aware. True, for a time these matters remained within the cognizance of none but the functionaries concerned, and failed to reach Chichikov's ears. But at length a letter from a confidential friend gave him reason to think that the fat was about to fall into the fire. Said the letter briefly, Dear Sir, I beg to advise you that possibly legal trouble is pending, but that you have no cause for uneasiness, seeing that everything will be attended to by yours very truly. Yet, in spite of its tenor, the epistle reassured its recipient. What a genius the fellow is, thought Chichikov to himself. Next, to complete his satisfaction, his tailor arrived with his new suit, which he had ordered. Not without a certain sense of pride did our hero inspect the frock-coat of smoked grey shot with flame colour, and look at it from every point of view, and then try on the breeches, the latter fitting him like a picture, and quite concealing any deficiencies in the matter of his thighs and calves, though, when buckled behind, they left his stomach projecting like a drum. True, the customer remarked that there appeared to be a slight tightness under the right armpit, but the smiling tailor only rejoined that that would cause the waist to fit all the better. Sir, he said triumphantly, you may rest assured that the work has been executed exactly as it ought to have been executed. No one, except in St. Petersburg, could have done it better. And as a matter of fact, the tailor himself hailed from St. Petersburg, but called himself on his signboard "Foreign Costumier from London and Paris," the truth being that by the use of a double-barrelled flourish of cities superior to merely Karlsruhe and Copenhagen, he designed to acquire business and cut out his local rivals. Chichikov graciously settled the man's account, and as soon as he had gone, paraded at leisure and con amore, and after the manner of an artist of aesthetic taste, before the mirror. Somehow he seemed to look better than ever in the suit, for his cheeks had now taken on a still more interesting air, and his chin an added seductiveness, while his white collar lent tone to his neck, the blue satin tie heightened the effect of the collar, the fashionable dicky set off the tie, the rich satin waistcoat emphasized the dicky, and the smoked grey shot-with-flame colour frock-coat, shining like silk, splendidly rounded off the whole. When he turned to the right he looked well; when he turned to the left he looked even better. In short, it was a costume worthy of a Lord Chamberlain or the species of dandy who shrinks from swearing in the Russian language, but amply relieves his feelings in the language of France. Next, inclining his head slightly to one side, our hero endeavoured to pose as though he were addressing a middle-aged lady of exquisite refinement, and the result of these efforts was a picture which any artist might have yearned to portray. Next, his delight led him gracefully to execute a hop in ballet fashion, so that the wardrobe trembled and a bottle of eau de cologne came crashing to the floor. Yet even this contretemps did not upset him. He merely called the offending bottle a fool, and then debated whom first he should visit in his attractive guise. Suddenly there resounded through the hall a clatter of spurred heels, and then the voice of a gendarme, saying, "You are commanded to present yourself before the Governor-General." Turning round, Chichikov stared in horror at the spectacle presented, for in the doorway there was standing an apparition wearing a huge moustache, a helmet surmounted with a horsehair plume, a pair of crossed shoulder-belts, and a gigantic sword. A whole army might have been combined into a single individual. And when Chichikov opened his mouth to speak, the apparition repeated, "You are commanded to present yourself before the Governor-General." And at the same moment our hero caught sight both of a second apparition outside the door and of a coach waiting beneath the window. What was to be done? Nothing whatever was possible. Just as he stood, in his smoked grey shot-with-flame colour suit, he had then and there to enter the vehicle, and, shaking in every limb, and with a gendarme seated by his side, to start for the residence of the Governor-General. And even in the hall of that establishment no time was given him to pull himself together, for at once an aide-de-camp said, "Go inside immediately, for the Prince is awaiting you." And as in a dream did our hero see a vestibule where couriers were being handed dispatches, and then a salon which he crossed with the thought, "I suppose I am not to be allowed a trial, but shall be sent straight to Siberia." And at the thought his heart started beating in a manner which the most jealous of lovers could not have rivalled. At length there opened a door, and before him he saw a study full of portfolios, ledgers, and dispatch boxes, with, standing behind them, the gravely menacing figure of the Prince. "There stands my executioner," thought Chichikov to himself. "He is about to tear me to pieces as a wolf tears a lamb." Indeed, the Prince's lips were simply quivering with rage. "Whence before did I spare you," he said, "and allow you to remain in the town when you ought to have been in a prison? Yet your only return for my clemency has been to revert to a career of fraud, and of fraud as dishonourable as ever a man engaged in." "To what dishonourable fraud do you refer, your Highness?" asked Chichikov, trembling from head to foot. The Prince approached and looked him straight in the eyes. "Let me tell you," he said, "that the woman whom you induced to witness a certain will has been arrested, and that you will be confronted with her." The world seemed suddenly to grow dim before Chichikov's sight. "Your Highness," he gasped, "I will tell you the whole truth and nothing but the truth. I am guilty, yes, I am guilty, but I am not so guilty as you think, for I was led away by rascals." "That anyone can have led you away is impossible," retorted the Prince. "Recorded against your name there stands more felonies than even the most hardened liar could have invented. I believe that never in your life have you done a deed not innately dishonourable, that not a kopeck have you ever obtained by aught but shameful methods of trickery and theft, the penalty for which is Siberia and the knout. But enough of this. From this room you will be conveyed to prison, where, with other rogues and thieves, you will be confined until your trial may come on. And this is lenient treatment on my part, for you are worse, far worse, than the felons who will be your companions.